There we go. Okay, so
good morning for Saturday morning. Yes.
Yep. So let's talk about log4j just to get started. I think everybody can see on the screen that Chris posted his homework assignment, and thank you for doing that, Chris. And it talks about log4j. Now, have any of you read about log4j? I'm sure you've seen it in the headlines. Does any one of the mentees want to tell me your understanding of log4j?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. This, and we sort of talked about it when I sent the forecast to everybody. Log4j has been given a risk score of a perfect 10 out of 10 by Homeland Security and CISA. So it is bad. It is really bad. And the problem is it's extremely widespread, and so therefore they wanted to get the word out. They told for example, all federal agencies that they had to mitigate all log4j vulnerabilities by December 24th. That's a big deal. That's, everybody starts working overtime until this is done. Chris, tell me your understanding of log4j. You have it here, but tell me.
Yeah.
Summarize.
Yeah. My understanding of log4j is this little piece of code within programs that is pretty much its duty is to automate log messages and provide a program script that says, hey, if this event happens, please post it on a log and send it out to a web server. What the vulnerability is and why it's such a big risk is if it's executed properly by the right people, you can have total control and access to your computer system. The main key part here, Scotty wrote, is it's a Java-based program. Mm-hmm. And the problem with Java, and some of you have seen if you ever installed Java before, their biggest thumbs up advertising marketing thing is we're on 3 billion devices worldwide.
Right.
Yeah, it's also hidden among software. What I talked to Scotty earlier last week was this is in Minecraft. It's used in Minecraft to log what's going on when it talks back and forth in multiplayer. It's also used in a bunch of other software. I just found out as a system administrator, it is on one of my programs, and I already told my project manager, hey, it's on one of our programs. And my project manager told me, thank you very much. We're looking into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm on orders right now. I'm waiting on orders to do whatever I need to do to help them. But it's scary because it's everywhere, and it's not just business enterprise computers. It can be on your home computers as well, especially when we say Minecraft has one of them, for example, or it could be on Word. It could be on even just host your own website. You can have it. You have to do some very good scanning of your computer to see what software has it and what software doesn't have it. I kind of wish I had a secondary link. Looking at this now, I wish I finished the paragraph that I did. Sorry, I submitted my rough draft rather than my final. The second link, CISA's directive is listen to your vendors, and they say patch, you better patch.
Right.
That's the bottom line of what Jenna Easterly, the CISA director, wrote in her memo.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask you a question from Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Is this program something that our firewalls cannot stop it?
It can stop it. And I don't know how much I want to get into detail, But
I
I have friends in the network security industry who says they have used firewall rules. The problem with firewall rules is if you make one, what are you blocking that could be productive? It becomes a availability. If you remember your CIA triad, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, I can set up something to protect my confidentiality, but if it affects my availability, that's an issue.
Right.
And that's why you need to have a change management process. That's why I don't sit there and fix things as a system administrator. I let my project manager know what's going on, and my project manager can come back to me and say, Chris, we got this. Here's what we're doing. Stand by.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the firewall rule is interesting. I have no access to the firewalls. I can't do anything with the firewalls. It's probably good as an enterprise level that you don't have access to the firewall. But if you're asking from a small business point of view, Farsane, the answer to your question is yes, there is a firewall rule you can use. Just be mindful that you could be blocking something else your boss could be needing, and you have to figure out a workaround to go to use that firewall rule, but at the same time, make sure your boss can access what he needs to do, for example, in Microsoft Office.
Well, when you mentioned home computers, I said, what about our firewalls? But if if I am in a little company and I'm handling the cybersecurity part, I think we have to have some software in addition. I don't know when I'm looking at this, it's a software dash hacking, business software hacking. Is it the what that is hacking, or is it something that stops the hacking?
Okay. Let me do some analysis here that hopefully it will help you understand the challenge of log4j. I'll just bring this up so everybody can see it. Log4j, there are a number of reasons why it's such a big risk. The first is it's open source. Okay, that means it's out there and anybody can use it for free. It's a file. It's not a program.
I see.
So that makes it really difficult to search unless you do a file-based search. It is a library, also known as a framework. In other words, it is basically a piece of code that you can plug into your code if you're an app developer. So that makes it a challenge because it could literally be inside of your program, and your program could be compiled and therefore not viewable by external log file type programs. It is modular, which means it can be installed anywhere. Like Chris said, Microsoft installed it on Minecraft. Amazon has it on a number of their Amazon Web Services. Cisco did it on some of their remote access software and their systems management software. Microsoft has it on some of their servers. You know, I mean, it is a very widely used piece of code. The main reason is, number one, it's effective, and number two, it's free. It does what it's designed to do. The problem is it does a little extra as well if you work it right.
And number three, it's available.
Yes. Yeah, it's open source. It's been out there for years. In other words, this vulnerability is not new. It's just that somebody discovered it. Did you hear who discovered it, Chris? Who first reported it?
Offhand, no.
Alibaba. Alibaba.
See.
So it wasn't even discovered by Americans. It was discovered by
Chinese.
Yeah, somebody out there in you know, that we're hoping everybody is good guys. Well, Somebody from Alibaba reported that this is actually out there. Everybody tested it and said, holy smokes, he's right, you know? So it's been out there for years. Also, there are multiple versions of this. If it was developed by a team of volunteers and there's some sort of vulnerability or problem with the code, the promise of open source is, I'll work on it, but it's never, I'm going to drop what I'm doing that makes me money to work on an open source issue that's free. You know, everybody has jobs. So open source, it's sort of put out there with the disclaimer, you use it at your own risk. Chris.
They're also reliant on either the person who has the project or the community itself to find that and fix it.
Right.
And
that's another thing. Open source files, libraries, frameworks, code patches, etc., are all notorious for not following rigorous regression testing. They don't do security testing on some of these things. It just, and we get into confidentiality, integrity, availability. How good does it do what I want it to do? That's the main focus of these open source code snippets, if you will. Not necessarily, well, what happens if somebody uses it in a manner that I didn't even think about when I designed it? So these folks will say, well, gee, I thought Java was more secure. Well, sadly, that's not the case. So that means they didn't know all of Java's vulnerabilities, but they used it to make this code snippet. You know, so how do you blame open source developers? You don't. Long time ago, DoD took a very draconian stance and said there will be no open source in the Department of Defense. And that lasted a few years, I believe. But now they realize that open source is used in so many things. If you have a, oh gosh, let me just, and I'm going to suppose, this is an external hard drive. Okay, just a little, USB connection hard drive. It's quite possible that the operating system that's used to control this appliance is based on a Linux kernel. Linux is open source. So if you say you can't use open source, that means you can't use these hard drives. See the problem? Cisco switches and most network switches, NAS devices like NetApp, they all use Linux kernels baked onto their chips. So if you say you can't use open source, that means you can't buy NetApp storage modules. So DoD, I'm certain, modified their stance on this because of the widespread use of open source. So now it comes down to we have to monitor and scan these things after the fact because we cannot presume that everything is safe. It's just everything's out there. So you've got to test. Like Chris said, you've got to patch, but you also have to test.
Yeah, I forgot about test.
Yep. So the issue with log4j is also that there are multiple versions of it, the most recent version of which is not vulnerable. It's all the older versions that are. And because it may have been cooked into your application, you may not ever consider upgrading your application because this code library within it is out of date. You just say, phooey, no big deal. So it could be literally almost anywhere. And that's the scary part about it. So let's talk about the attack vector. here's the attack vector. In order to exploit the log4j vulnerability, it has to begin with what's called a remote code execution. And that is where something executes, something external executes something internally. And the point of it is, and I think you guys have all heard about, what's it called, the buffer overruns? Remote code execution is where something was designed to fit into a particular space, but because you do remote code execution, it can write to areas outside of that space. And if it's out here, that means it's possible it can be executed out here. So that's what remote code execution literally means. Typically, it's paired with what's called a buffer overrun. And because you said, well, you know, the data entry point for this can only be this many characters, and it has to be this particular type of code. It can only be numbers or whatever. You're very, very specific in the definition of the fields, but then something executes that goes outside of that field size, and therefore the rules don't apply out here. So remote code execution and buffer overrun are almost always the top points of entry for external attack vectors. Almost always, except for things like social engineering, and password cracking, and those sorts of things. So also, and they found that the main thing that is used for this is called an LDAP query. LDAP is Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, LDAP, and it's used specifically to query databases, including, I might add, Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Exchange. They use LDAP like crazy. So, you know, here's the problem. Amazon Web Services uses LDAP, but if they've got this piece of code in there and somebody knows where it's at, they can use external LDAP queries, which Amazon can't block, and go in and try and do that remote code execution. So it is manifested through an external LDAP query. So the very first thing the Department of Homeland Security told everyone to do is to control and manage all of your external LDAP queries. Make sure that only LDAP queries that you anticipate are necessary make it through your enclave firewalls. So yes, you can set a rule set, but you can't say stop all LDAP queries, because then Microsoft Exchange stops, for example.
So you can't just wipe them out. You can't just delete them. Like
well,
anything that is in that
Douglas,
module, though, you can't just.
Right. It could be embedded in code from 6-8 years ago. And by the way, the person who wrote that code is retired and sitting on a beach in Miami or Minnesota. I don't know. So the thing is that they are still looking to find where this is. It could be a separate file. It could be integrated into somebody else's file. And worst of all, it could be compiled into somebody's program to where you can't even see the signature for that code. So you have to go back to the developers and say, is it there? Did you use this? Well, what if the guy that put together our software went to another company? They're under no obligation to tell you. And you may not even be able to ask them. So that's the problem with log4j, and that's why it's such high risk. It really does have these vulnerabilities, They do have to be executed in a very specific fashion in order to exploit them, but as of today, it's my understanding that they still don't know where it's at in everyone's environment. They still don't know. So I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there have been a total of 3 announcements on it, vulnerability announcements. I know there were 2, and they said that a 3rd was being developed. Because they basically said, good morning, Harminder.
Good morning, sir.
They basically said, everybody needs to, go and get this file and correct it and update this file to 2.15 or above, I think is what the version was.
The three I think you're thinking about is the initial announcement from DHS, Jen's memo, Jen Easterly's memo, the director, and an update. There was an update that was posted on Friday.
No, that was 1 and 2.
That was 1 and 2. Okay.
Yeah, that was 1 and 2. What occurred is they said this will fix it, and there were particular conditions under which this did not fix it. So they said, again, you get smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of what will cause this to occur, less and less, but you did this very widespread announcement worldwide and said everybody has to fix this. And even if they did fix this, somebody, now that everybody's looking at this code, somebody else found something else and said this big fix won't fix this. And as they were addressing this second, I'll call it an auxiliary vulnerability, somebody was theorizing that there were more. And so, it's a case of log4j. A number of people have speculated that we're going to be running around chasing our tails for months trying to get this fixed.
Question.
So we can say, yeah, go ahead.
How can we discover this? How can we find it on our computers?
Very, very good question. The way that is probably the fastest and most appropriate is to do a file search for a particular file name. But again, the challenge you run into is that won't work for compiled programs that use that file library, because that file name no longer exists. It's been incorporated into a larger piece of code. So there is no one search that does it all.
Oh, there is no one search that can find it.
And, oh, by the way, have you guys ever heard of Splunk? Splunk.
What is that?
Splunk is an open source security file system, and it can be used for monitoring and reporting, and guess what? It can be used for logging, and Splunk used log4j. Splunk, and that is like, it's one of the programs that you would use to look for log4j actually has log4j in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How nice.
It's kind of fun when you think about it. Obviously, the folks that are really concerned about this understand that it's nasty and it needs to be taken care of. The good news, I would say, is the attack vector is well known, and so they are able to pretty strongly manage it, which mitigates the risk tremendously. And now you can take your time researching this without worrying about going to bed at night, waking up in the morning, and your company's bankrupt. So it gives us a little bit of time to research this. Because my understanding is it has to be an LDAP query, and it performs in the form of remote code execution, which results in the running of unauthorized code. So if you can manage that, then everything else you can take your time on your research. Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you were able to hear me, but what I was saying is that we can be sure that the bad guys are also working really hard at trying to find how to exploit it right now while we're still looking for it. So it's a big risk.
Yeah, the good guys and the bad guys are all focused on this right now. Mm-hmm. The good guys are like, holy smokes, where is this out there, and how can it be exploited? And the exact same questions being asked by the bad guys, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
You know, how quick can I exploit this?
Yeah. How can I quickly use it? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Make myself some, pocket money before the holidays. Chris.
If there's a polite way to tell you that it's 9:30 and I like to know about the elevator speech. Just want to, if there's a polite way to say that.
No, I appreciate that very much, because this is going to take, I think, all of 30 minutes for me to do. Thank you. Thank you. So just so everybody knows, log4j is a big deal. It's very widespread, and we're going to be hearing about it for months. So just be tuned in to listen for this, because it could be in even your phone apps, the apps for your security cameras, your electronic photo frame. You just don't know. So anyway, let's go to your elevator pitch for CS-Sensei. Thank you, Chris, for helping to get us back on track. So when I talk about an elevator pitch, what comes to mind? Anybody?
What is the elevator pitch?
Right, that's what I'm asking.
I think in the elevator pitch, so firstly we tell the other person who we are, what we do. We just give a short introduction and whole our experience within 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. You talk about yourself, you do it in a short period of time, and those are the two main features of an elevator pitch. However, you don't have 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like 30 minutes, 30
first
seconds.
Of all, first of all, let me ask a really weird question to sort of set the stage here. Why do you think interviews are needed?
Because he want to know about the person who giving an interview. He just want a little bit overview of the person who's taking the interview.
Okay.
Well, if they're a good fit, correct? Yeah.
What was that, Doug?
I said that's correct. You want to know if they're a good fit.
A good fit. How do you tell if you're right? How do you tell if somebody's a good fit? This is a fun question though, because it gets to the reason why we have interviews.
Well, you look at their previous experiences.
Because we want to check the. Sorry.
That's okay.
And the way that they are representing themselves, and whether or not if they have qualities such as integrity and confidentiality. Yeah.
Quality. How do you? You're right. You're right. All of this is right. How do you write qualities into a resume? You don't. You can't. So an interview, you've got all of your, let's say your technical background, your technical skills, your competence, and those sorts of things. You write them all down on your resume, and the resume is good enough for them to say, I'm interested, let's meet and talk. From that point onward, they've accumulated most of your technical and professional information to make a decision already, right? You wrote it on your resume and said, I do this, I did this, I have this, I've done this, etc. So now what they're doing is, and Doug, I love the way you said it, are you a good fit? Because you can't look at a resume and say, this person's going to be a hard worker or, whatever. So that's what the interview's for. And in many places, interviews are very heavily restricted because they're not allowed legally to ask certain questions because they have nothing to do with your work. They have everything to do with you, but not the job. So here's the employer, prospective employer, that's trying to match my job needs with somebody whose skills look like they're going to match it, but is it the right person holding those skills? So it's a real challenge. So let's talk about the elevator pitch. This was a definition that was given by IT&T. It says a pre-prepared speech that delivers information regarding you within a short period of time, namely the amount of time of an elevator ride. So, Harminder, you mentioned 5 minutes. You don't have 5 minutes. Think about it. Think about it as being, okay, typically we think of it as an elevator ride, but there could be other short periods of time. Mm-hmm. Let me give you some examples. What if you're riding on the metro or a bus and you just happen to sit down with the prospective hiring manager who rides the same bus? You only have a minute, a couple minutes, or 30 seconds, or whatever. What if you go to the gym and you're in the locker room getting changed while the CISO is right next to you getting changed? What if you are at a convention? You guys both attend this, let's say it's a security conference, and you run into them in the hallway. You're heading back to your room, they're heading out to a meal, but they stop and they say, well, I'm surprised you're here. Tell me a little bit about you. Pow! Elevator pitch. It's your opportunity, but it is an extremely limited time frame. So it has to be totally focused and, here's the thing, practiced. Practiced. Okay? And here's just my way of describing it. It's arguably one of the most vital parts of an interview. But it needs to be prepared and practiced, and it is your response to open-ended questions like, tell us a little bit about you, or why should we hire you? Everything that comes out of your mouth, you should already have put in place. You should have arranged to be as powerful as possible, and you should be able to deliver it with enthusiasm and excitement so that by the time you're done with that elevator pitch, they say, wow, this person is the right person for the job. Like you said, Doug, the right fit.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to actually, it made me think about that word, that question they asked in the interview. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And before I knew, I was doing a lot of, well, I am originally from Nicaragua, things that don't have anything to do. They don't want that. They want you to tell them, okay, I'm very passionate, helping people keep their data and, system secure. I do that by doing this, and I'm taking, this and this course, and I continuously learning, and that's it. Yep. But that's basically what they want to hear.
You're ahead of me.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So here's some of the things that this is just my impression, having conducted hundreds of hundreds of interviews and read thousands of resumes. An interviewer is likely to exit the interview and make their hiring decision based on 3 data points. Number 1, keywords they found in your resume. And no, Doug, it's not fair to bold, underline, or, put them in blue. No, you can't do that. It's all got to be, keywords that you pull forward so that they jump off the page. But no, you can't highlight them. Number 2, their perception of your warmth and competence as well as your theme. And we'll talk about theme in a minute. And then number 3, their overall ranking of you compared to everybody else based on number 1 and number 2. Okay? So number 1, keywords in your resume have to be solid. They should be able to read your resume and not miss anything. That's up to you to make it that way. And then the warmth and competence can only be communicated during an interview, a personal interview. Okay? So that's why your elevator pitch is so important. Think about it this way. You've got this, let's say it's a 30-minute interview, and they're going to say, okay, well, I've got a printer that does this, and I'm working on code that does this, and how would I do this or whatever. They are using that to measure your problem solving, to measure your technical competence, etc. But they don't use that to measure you. And you may have heard me describe this before. The best person in the world may not be the best fit for your team in the particular instance that you need them. Okay? So number 1, you need to be able to demonstrate your warmth. So how do you look warm? Well, it's about your demeanor, your attitude, your smile, your tone of voice, your posture. All of that is important. And in the end, they're asking themselves, do they like and trust you? It has nothing to do with can you do the job. It's do they like you and trust you, and therefore, if something occurs and they must rely on you, can they? Okay? So think about it that way. You got to start with looking like you are somebody that they want to work with. It's not your technical skills. So here's the thing. In the resume, they've already seen all the stuff about you. They already know it. They know the period of time that you worked for IBM and the period of time that you were unemployed and whatever. Your elevator pitch is focused on you. Your experience, attitude, and how they're relevant and valuable to your prospective employer. Okay? If you say, like you were saying, Doug, if you say, I worked at here and here and here and here, boring, you've already lost them. They already know that. And it's not about telling them as much as you can in 30 seconds. It has to be practiced to the point where it sounds natural and authentic. Okay? So you have to show the warmth, you have to show that you're authentic, and you have to show that you're interested. Not just, I was born in blah, 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 and I spent a lot of time in here and here. You want them to walk away excited about you. And the only way for that to occur is for you to be excited about you and then communicate that to them. Okay? So, be present. What I mean by that is don't be distracted. Turn off your bloody phone. Never, ever, ever should your pocket beep or buzz in the middle of an interview. That is death. Okay? Remember that every time. Leave it in the car. It doesn't matter. Just don't forget about it. Because it basically says, oops, hold on. It's my kid who's in daycare or whatever. Oh, it's my next interview. Or no. These people's time is important. So And you need to practice your elevator pitch. Do it in front of a mirror. No kidding. Stand in front of a full-length mirror and practice your own elevator pitch. Ask yourself the question and then practice the answer. In the end, you need to ask yourself, would I hire me? Am I excited about me? You could help using, like it says here, language that pops. Vivid details are always helpful. You could say, I was raised in a small town, or you could say, my hometown was so small we only had one corner store and one stoplight. That's a vivid detail. It will make them remember it. You know, oh, who's this Chris guy? I don't know. He was born in a small town. That big deal. See what I'm saying? Here's an interesting one. Verbals and non-verbals. They did a 1971 study, and they said that effective communication is a combination of three different things: words, body language, and tone and intonation, the actual volume and tone of your voice. What do you think the percentages were for those?
Well, body language is very important. Tone is important.
Body language, 55% of your communication. Very good. And second, what did you say?
The tone.
Your tone, 38%. What does that leave?
13.7.
7% is your nouns and verbs in interpersonal human communications. So you need to make sure that your body language and your tone of voice, your excitement, your posture, your open pose. You guys have all seen body language discussions like this. See me, I'm crossing my arms. What does this mean to you?
You're closed.
Closed person. You're
okay. Closed in the form of, you're right. What does it mean by closed?
You can't get into me.
I'm done listening to you. Think about it.
Yeah.
You've lost me. You've lost me. I'm thinking about lunch or whatever.
Actually,
yeah, I'm done. I'm done. That means I'm done.
Yeah.
That's one way the police uses when they're, I mean, everybody, but the police in particular, asking you nice questions, right? And all of a sudden comes the question that they want to know about. I say, so, but did you know X and X? And then you immediately go, well, no, actually, they started at home. Something doesn't fit here. He's not opening it up. It's very important.
You and I both did two things. I don't know if everybody saw those. Number one, you crossed your arms, and number two, you leaned back. Mm-hmm. Leaning back is also a sign of disengagement.
You're tired. I'm tired. That means I'm over it.
Right. It's funny, but your distance communicates your interest. If you and I are talking, well, think about it. Where you're talking to somebody, let's say a politician, and they're saying, I promise to do this and this and this and this. The bottom line is, I'm here for you. They lean into the conversation and say, this is important. You need to listen. You know? Your lean makes a difference. Warm eyes. Remember that eye contact is always good, and if somebody asks you a question or if you have to think, look up. Don't look down. Don't look to the side. If you've ever watched somebody say, how can you tell someone's lying or being evasive? The first thing they say is they look to the side or they look down. So train yourself to go, I remember back in, if you look up, no problem. You're looking up into your brain. Think about it that way. But if you go, yeah, I'm going to be dependable. Okay, remember the warm eyes, a warm smile, and facial expressions. Start with it,
another word,
and then get bigger. I'm sorry, Farsane?
I was saying, in another word, you gotta be there 110%. Your body,
Very good.
your eyes, your face,
Yep.
your smile, your warmth, your passion for that job, for those people, all of that. And of course, at the end, I'm going to tell you a trick that I've been using in the past life.
Okay. Good.
How to shine, how to use all of this. There's a little trick.
If you've ever heard the discussion about somebody being snooty when they talk to you, what do they? You've seen like this? Well, they read it now as being the chin, but always make sure your chin is down. Your chin down shows that you're engaged and warm, rather than this. Okay? Lean in. Seriously, don't let your back touch the back of the chair during your interview. Stay erect. Keep your posture up. That also helps your tone as well when you're speaking. It helps your breath and your tone. But again, it says, don't take it too far. In other words, don't sit and say, hi, I want to be your employee. You can get to the creepy factor real quick. So watch for feedback from the person you're interviewing with. If you lean forward too much and they start leaning back, see if you can find a middle point where you're not making them feel like they've got to, express themselves. Yeah. Comfortable gestures. I don't know if you guys know this, but because I teach online, I know exactly where my gestures are. And I always try and make sure that I'm gesturing within that space. This is my stage. And so when I'm gesturing, I'm not like, oh, yeah, the fish was this big. You don't know how big that is. You don't see it. So, you can make your gestures. You can count on fingers. You can point toward, you say, oh, yeah, it was way up in the north side of whatever. Keep your gestures within your space and make sure that you are fully seen when you're online, especially when you're online. But when you're in person, the same thing happens. It's good to gesture because that shows a fuller person. But make sure that your gestures aren't jerky. Okay? Again,
two sides of that same coin.
There you go. Did you see that? I love that. Two sides of the same coin. That was a wonderful gesture. Wonderful. Avoid the closed position. Palms like this also indicate I'm done. I'm overwhelmed. I'm impatient. So don't show them your palms. Farsane, isn't there a cultural issue with showing your left hand?
I don't know, no.
Okay. In the Bedouin and those sorts of things, the right hand is used for eating, the left hand is used for other stuff.
Bathroom?
Yes.
Bathroom, something
yes.
like that.
So culturally, don't be focusing on your left hand. The right hand is the hand of friendship. That may be.
You shake hands. Yeah, we shake hands with our right hand.
Right hand. Yep.
Right.
Shrugs.
We eat with the right.
Sideways head gestures. Just be aware. All of that can be taken into account. If somebody's interviewing you and they say, what do you think about this job? I like it. What I said and what I just indicated to you are two different things. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Bye. Next. Just watch out for it. Watch out for it. So here's the one that I wanted to get to. What's your theme? One or two words that describe you that when you're done with the interview, they are going to remember about you because you tell them, I'm a what? People person, natural entrepreneur, change agent, curious techie, psychology junkie, academic immigrant, whatever it is. What are the two words that you use to describe yourself? And you notice at the bottom, I recommend don't use team player. Far overused. And like I said, unless your resume just shows team, not individual. Okay? So, super duper extra discount or extra credit, what's my theme? Do any of you remember me?
Customer friendly.
Where you say, I'm a something. I'm a something.
Passionate? Passionate?
Okay.
Okay, well,
It describes me.
I'm a problem solver.
That is one phrase that you might think about for yourself. Okay, I'll tell you mine, because we're running short on time. I say, I'm a systems thinker. And the reason I say that is, number one, I think, but number two, I think big. And that incorporates my mind in reference to whatever I'm working on. I am doing this mentorship for free. Why? Because I could be mentoring my future coworkers. I'm thinking about that approach while I'm talking to you. You could be the person that saves all of our bacon down the road. And that's why I'm investing time in you today. That's called a systems thinker. Okay? I think about everything from concept through retirement. I'm a systems thinker, so that's my theme. Also set your stage. You notice behind me, I've got this cute little Christmas tree lit. I've got this well-ordered china cabinet. I've got some stuff up on the wall, etc. It looks orderly. It looks friendly. It looks warm. My office is in our laundry. But I choose not to do these sessions in my office. I choose to do them out here in the dining room because the stage behind me reflects warmth and friendliness. If you have to commandeer a nice place in your house and send everybody else out to the movies while you do your interview, do it. It's worth it. The point is you want everything to convey your warmth and your competence. Okay? Be clear, crisp, and articulate. Eliminate ums. A pause is far more effective than a Own the room. Be confident when you arrive. Be confident when you leave. Okay? Interview tip from me. Carry a pad. Because that's where your homework should be. When somebody says, do you have any questions of us? You should immediately have questions. And don't just think about them. So, oh, yeah, I've had some really stupid ones, you know, in my time. Oh, yeah, can I get Fridays off?
That was a big one.
Wahoo! That, you know, this is a quality person. But if you say things like, yeah, I read in your quarterly statement that you guys do this and this and this. Don't you understand, or do you have problems with this as a result, or something like that? You've just demonstrated that you did homework on them before you arrived. But the best way to do it, number one, when you are introduced to the people, write down their names. That tells the interviewer when I am receiving things, I write them down so I don't forget them. That's just good business. And then, you know, when you're talking to them in the interview, refer to your piece of paper and say, oh, Bob, you know, when you're doing this and this or whatever, you know, or they ask you a question and say, you know, what do you think about this? Oh, well, I'll tell you, Bob, it's, you know, refer to the name. Then have your questions there. And they say, do you have anything for us? Yes. In fact, and bring it straight up because you've read all of this. You've written it down. You're ready to go with it. Deliver it quickly. Their time is important, and therefore you point out that you did all sorts of research outside of their time because this interview is so important. You want the job. Not just, oh, it'd be nice if you got me the job. Dude, I remember when my very first job when I was 16 years old, I showed up at the job and my hair was down to my shoulders. And the guy said, well, this is a restaurant, a family-style restaurant. And we've got an image to convey. And I just, your resume looks really good. I just have one question. Are you willing to cut your hair for this job? And my response was, Steve, I would straight razor my head for this job. And he said, I'll see you here tomorrow with a haircut. Okay.
But you know that it's a very sensitive thing these days.
Yes, it is.
For a long time.
Yeah,
right.
This was back in the 70s. So 19.
Ask people to cut their hair, especially if they're grown-ups. When you're 16, it's a different story. Of course, I think you would have been. You loved your long hair. 16.
I didn't care about it, honestly. Everybody else was wearing their hair that way, so I grew my hair that way.
Yeah, that's the only time that a person can have long hair is when they are 16. After that, things going to change in their life. So asking them to cut their hair, I think the person, if it was, I would say no, goodbye.
Right.
Because what is the job? Either, it's a restaurant, as you said, or, I don't know, being a cashier or something.
Even though it's a more common practice today, nowadays, more open. But I've read somewhere, for example, depending on your situation, you should always, strive to look your best. And, for example, if you're a lawyer and you're trying to impress, that's what I read precisely, that some judges don't like, especially younger lawyers who are, they expect them to be more or less like them because they don't wear long hair in court. And so, you have to be, you have to think about those variables so that you can, factor in, and then you'll make a better impression. So it's always to be, I think, more willing to do that stuff for the business.
Of course, you're talking about being totally looking formal, with your tie and with your suit and your hair is totally, being groomed and your face and your everything.
Right.
You're talking about a little bit older, a little bit more professional lifestyle. We were talking about a 16-year-old. Just think about your child who's 16.
What amazed me was that this was people who were already professionals. That's
no, professional. That's different.
Yeah.
I have just one question. Well, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead, Scotty.
We're time over, so I'm trying to bring this down. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Doug, you say your thing, and then Farsane, please give us your magic that you told us you were going to give us at the end here.
It's so silly, but I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
There is.
Wait. Doug first. Then you. You can finish us off.
Okay. So, sorry. Thank you. Thank you both. So I just want to say that when you were talking about the questions, right? I remember this lady that you interviewed who was very good at, she hit everywhere and she was very confident and knowledgeable. And she asked you something about, do you have this type of, I forgot what the name is. So you spoke about an acronym.
Your service level agreements.
Huh?
Your service level agreements.
Oh, so SLV, SLA. Because why? Well, because I want to hit the ground running if I'm given the job or something like that. That really showed that the person cared and was willing to go, the extra mile.
Yep. Absolutely. And she proved herself over the next few years. She was stellar in the way that she did her work. So professional. So,
You said service level agreements?
Service level agreements, SLAs. Okay. It's part of support contracts usually.
Okay.
So, okay, Farsane, go ahead.
Okay. Majority of us who are not too young, and we have had obviously several years of professional jobs, and we have gone through a series of interviews. We do have all of those tricks of the trade, but we need something to turn it on. I had learned that if I have a pint of ice cream, just right before the honest, all of my what is the hormone the hormone that is so makes you so
endorphins?
Adrenaline, all of the adrenaline hormones, they're gonna just be jumping to the maximum. And then when I get to that point, I am so articulate. I can bring up all of these qualities. I just need something to turn on that that adrenaline rush in me, and then I'm gonna just be honest, an actor that I can just muse the entire. And in these days, there is not one person to interview. There is a team. There is a group that they're sitting there to interview you. Each of them is somebody important. So that was my trick, to go there and just kill it.
Be on a sugar rush.
Because I was on sugar rush, yes. Otherwise, if you interview me at this time of the day in my time zone, it's so early, so sleepy. I mean, I have no qualities for interview, but you give me a pint of ice cream right before the interview, and then see me how I can do it beyond, all of the hormones in my body, not just sugar rush. They're gonna come to me. My brain is gonna work at 150% capacity. My emotions, my body language, my warmth, my charm, and then and my professionalism, it's gonna just, that's my trick.
Very interesting. I've never heard that, but I think the important thing is
try it
one
time.
Tell you what I do. I always have a cup of coffee before my interview.
Well, yeah, I mean, or maybe caffeine. Sometimes two. We have to learn how to turn on that little.
To get a little bit sharper if you can.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. And that might also be avoiding things like oily foods the night before. Whatever. If
then after that, I would diet actually, because I had that huge ice cream. That was 5,000 calories. Well, good thing. And honestly, I did get the jobs. I was the only one that I was picked between hundreds of, I don't know, hundreds, whatever. And they just fell in love with me from every corner. Professionalism, from all of my experiences, and my personality. That how am I going to put my life on line for them? I mean, do you have to have those emotions just boiling into your body when you are talking about it? So that's a
Very
trick.
Good. Very good. Yeah, I like it. Anybody else before we finish up?
Scotty, I did post some things in the CS-Sensei Facebook group that may be helpful for interviews. The first one is Toastmasters' take on the elevator speech, which is parallel. And Toastmasters is a public speaking leadership group that teaches Toastmasters very well. Teaches public speaking and leadership very well. They have a little article about elevator speeches, and I posted that on the CS-Sensei website. There's also a reality show that Peacock has. I'm currently looking in YouTube to see if there's a free version of it, and I found out there's not. But Grant Cardone, who wrote a book about productivity called the 10X Rule, he's looking for a salesperson, and he actually videotapes all the interviews. to show you how he does his hiring process. For some scouting on what to work on, you may want to look at that video series on YouTube for free.
Very nice.
Grant
Cardone.
Grant Cardone. I posted the links on CS-Sensei's Facebook. Last thing, and I see the time, I would recommend this book. I put that on my homework at the end.
Ah, yeah. I heard of that one.
Mm-hmm.
The Proximity Principle.
Part of your homework for doing interviews and getting to know people is to get to know people and getting into basically knowing who you need to know to get what you need for your job. So I would recommend this book. I'm currently on chapter 3 about the people, types of people, and I'm just continuing to read it, and I'll keep you guys up to date on my journey with that. Super.
Is that Ken Coleman?
Ken Coleman, correct, yes. Okay. He also has a YouTube channel as well. If you type Ken Coleman on YouTube, his radio show's on YouTube.
Oh, great.
So, just as a reminder, we are not going to have our sessions next week, which is Christmas Day, and the following week, which is New Year's Day. So we'll be back here on the 8th.
8th, perfect. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
And you. Happy holidays. Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays as well.
Happy Hanukkah.
And greetings. Despite all of these, hot things in the air, that because it's Christmas time and so on, unfortunately, it also brings blues.
Yes, that's right.
For many of us, that either we're away from the family or from the loved ones or so on and so forth. So for some of us, holiday season is rough, extremely rough. At the same time, we're buying hundreds of dollars of gifts for everybody and this and that, but still we are blue to the bone. Thank you. Scotty, you are so passionate. You're so passionate, and I love you all. You're the best, and Christopher, you're so knowledgeable. You're so knowledgeable. And I just wish if I could somehow train you on speaking. And I know it's silly from a foreigner who wants to train you on speaking, because you talk so low and so with less emotion. You need to kind of become a little bit heated and just a little bit, I don't know, more. I don't know, if you want to grab people's attention, I think that's important. I'm so pleased you are not seeing me, that how much I am using my body language one of these days.
I appreciate the feedback. I am actually with Department of Labor's Toastmasters group because of that. If I give any suggestion or advice, parts now is far worse than what you've described me. I was the guy that walked in the cube, did not associate with anybody. I did my work, come in, and come out.
That's the reason. Been there, done that. That's the reason I brought it up.
My boss loved me enough, and it was not necessarily my boss. It was a person that was level to my boss, sideways to my boss. She came to me in my cube and said, "Chris, you do a good job technically. You write very well. You do your work. You need to talk more. I'm going to pay for your, actually she didn't say I'm going to pay. I want you to do Toastmasters. I want you to go from noon to 1 p.m. You do not count that as lunch. You do that as count as training. Take that training, learn from it." I highly recommended it. And till this day, I will let people know that if they need help with confidence and public speaking, it's not a fix. It's not a big fix. It's not a perfect. I'm still weaknesses, as you call it. I highly recommend doing a Toastmasters group. If you can't afford to do a Toastmasters group, videotape, as Scotty suggested, videotape yourself. Be brave enough to put it up on YouTube and let the people go at it with you about your speeches, and don't take it personally, learn from it.
Right.
That's my suggestion.
Very good.
But I am much improved in what I was 9-10 years ago.
I love you, Christopher. I love you for being so brave and being so open about it, because we all feel a little bit touchy-feely if the people, they put fingers on our weak points, and we all have. It could be, for example, myself. I'm 100 million% American, but I still have an accent. And when people, and because I speak 4 languages minimum a day, I keep this accent. There is no way. But anyways, when people, they push that button, I get upset. But I adore you for being so open and so brave. And I'm old enough that I can love you all in that way. I'm even older than Scotty, and Scotty is just a baby.
Well, thank you for that. Okay, guys, we need to finish this. But thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank
you. We'll see you on the 8th.
Yeah, season's greeting. Bye. Bye.